where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. From the blood of a fallen monster rose a creature of pure legend, a winged steed said to outrun storms, carry heroes into battle, and vanish into the sky before mortals could even blink. This is the untamed myth of Pegasus. The wind that sweeps down from the peaks of Mount Helicon carries more than the scent of pine and cold stone. It carries a whisper, an echo of a time when the world was woven with threads of the divine and the mortal, a time when the impossible took form and soared. This is the story of one such impossibility, a creature born not of earth, but of the sea and the sky, a symbol of untamed freedom and the unbridgeable gap between man and the divine, the Pegasus. Our journey begins not with a sight, but with a sound, the resonant, almost musical thrum of immense wings beating against the thin, high air. It is a sound that does not so much break the silence as compose a new one, a symphony of solitude and power. Imagine the first human to ever hear that sound, a lone shepherd tending his flock on a forgotten Thessalian hillside as dusk bleeds into a violet, star-dusted night. He looks up, not because of a shadow, but because the very atmosphere has changed, charged with a static energy that raises the hairs on his arms. His eyes, wide with a primal mixture of terror and awe, scan the heavens. And then he sees it, a silhouette that defies all known logic, a shape that is at once horse and bird and something entirely other, painted in stark, beautiful contrast against the rising moon. It is a creature of pure, fluid motion, a living sculpture of moonlight and muscle. This is the first impression of the Pegasus, not as a mere beast of burden or a simple monster, but as an event, a phenomenon that alters the very landscape of the soul it touches. The air grows colder, crisper, as if the presence of such celestial biology purifies it. The mundane world of the shepherd, the bleating of his sheep, the weight of his cloak, falls away, replaced by a breathtaking, heart-stopping moment of connection with the mythic. He does not cry out, he cannot. His breath catches in his throat, a prisoner to the sublime vision passing overhead. And as quickly as it appeared, it is gone, swallowed by the vast, dark canvas of the sky, leaving behind only the memory of that sound and the unshakable certainty that the world is far stranger and far more wonderful than he had ever dared to dream. To understand the Pegasus is to journey back to a source of both profound beauty and shocking violence, to the very moment of its birth from a union of godly power and monstrous suffering. The creature's origin is inextricably linked to the myth of the Gorgon Medusa, once a beautiful maiden cursed by the gods. When the hero Perseus, guided by Athena and armed with a mirrored shield, descended into her petrifying lair and severed her head, the earth itself seemed to recoil. From the bloody stump of her neck, as the dark, viscous life force of the Gorgon soaked into the barren soil, two beings sprang forth, fully formed and gasping their first breath. The warrior Chrysaor and his brother, the gleaming, white-winged horse Pegasus. This was no gentle birth. It was a violent, miraculous genesis, a creature of the air and light born from death and darkness. The very first beat of its wings scattered the cave's oppressive gloom, and with a whinny that sounded like the ringing of a celestial bell, it ascended, fleeing the scene of its traumatic origin, leaving the terrestrial realm of blood and sorrow far below. It did not simply run. It launched itself into the sky, its hooves striking the air as if it were solid ground, a being immediately and completely at home in a domain no horse was ever meant to conquer. This origin story is not merely a fantastical tale. It is deeply symbolic. Pegasus represents a purity that can emerge from profound corruption, a spirit of freedom born from the ultimate constraint of Medusa's curse. He is the light that follows the darkest hour, the soaring imagination that escapes the prison of a terrible reality. His connection to the muses of Mount Helicon, where his hoof strike created the inspiring spring of Hippocrene, further cements his role as a bridge between the brutal world of heroes and monsters and the elevated realms of poetry, art, and divine knowledge. He is a paradox, a child of a monster who serves the gods, a creature of the earth who claims the sky, a symbol of untamed nature who becomes the faithful companion to the greatest of heroes. The natural habitat of the Pegasus was as elusive and elevated as the creature itself. It was said to favor the high, lonely places of the world, the secret meadows nestled amongst the clouds on mountain peaks like Helicon and Parnassus, places where the air was so pure it tasted like cold nectar, and the silence was a physical presence. These were not the rolling, accessible pastures of mortal horses, but vertiginous, hidden plateaus accessible only by flight, where emerald grass grew sprinkled with starlight and crystal-clear springs, born from the very hoof falls of the divine Steed, bubbled up from the living rock. To witness such a place was to see a fragment of Elysium misplaced upon the earth. The light there was different, softer, as if filtered through a veil of pearl, and the colors were more vibrant, the blues deeper, the greens more luminous. Here, the Pegasus would dwell not in herds, but most often in solitary grandeur, or occasionally in the company of its own kind in small, familial groups. Their behavior was a blend of equine nobility and avian wildness. They would graze on the enchanted flora, their powerful necks arched, their movements fluid and graceful, yet always with an air of watchful awareness. Their interactions were silent, communicated through the subtle language of body posture, the flick of an ear, the soft nicker that was more a vibration in the air than a sound. They drank from the magical springs, their muzzles disturbing the water's perfect surface, sending ripples that seemed to carry light into the depths. At dusk, they would often gather at the edge of their skybound home, looking out over the world below, not with longing but with a serene, detached dominion. The atmosphere in these sanctuaries was one of profound peace, but it was a peace that was fiercely guarded. The air hummed with a low, magical frequency, a ward against any mortal who might, by some miracle or folly, stumble upon this sacred ground. It was a kingdom of the air, a domain of breathtaking beauty and absolute solitude, where the Pegasus was not a visitor, but its rightful, sovereign lord. The physical form of the Pegasus is a masterpiece of convergent mythology, a seamless fusion of two majestic forms that should, by all rights of nature, remain separate. To describe it as merely a horse with wings is to do it a grave disservice. It is a creature of perfected anatomy, where every muscle, every sinew, is engineered for a life divided between the solid earth and the boundless sky. Its body is that of the most powerful, noble stallion, bred from a dream of equine perfection, broad-chested, with legs long and strong, capable of launching its immense weight heavenward with a single, explosive thrust. Its coat is most often described as being of the purest white, but this is not the flat white of marble or paint. It is a living white, one that captures and transforms light. In the dawn, it glows with a rosy hue. At noon, it is a brilliant, sun-drenched ivory, and by moonlight, it becomes a shimmering tapestry of silver and pearl, seeming to generate its own luminescence. Its wings, however, are its most breathtaking feature. They are not the awkward appendages of a hybrid, but vast, arching structures of immense power and grace, feathered in pristine white, each primary flight feather as long as a warrior's spear and as meticulously shaped. When folded, they drape over its flanks like a royal cloak. When unfurled, they span a distance that casts a small valley into shadow. Its eyes are large, intelligent, and deep, the color of aged amber or a twilight sky, holding an ancient knowledge that is both calming and utterly alien. Its hooves, which never seem to touch common dirt, have a polished, almost metallic sheen, and legend says they can strike sparks from the air itself. The overall impression is one of impossible grace and overwhelming power. It moves with a fluidity that defies its size, whether galloping across a cloud with thunderous, silent steps or banking effortlessly on a thermal current, its wings making minute, instinctive adjustments to the wind. It is a living paradox, a creature of immense physical weight that has mastered the weightless domain, a being that embodies both terrestrial strength and celestial freedom in one breathtaking form. The relationship between humanity and the Pegasus was never one of simple domestication or casual encounter. For the few mortals who were chosen or who were brave enough to seek it out, the interaction was a sacred, perilous, and life-altering trial. The most famous of these was the hero Bellerophon, a prince of Corinth who, armed with a divine tool, a golden bridle given to him by the goddess Athena, journeyed to the Pegasus's watering place, the spring of Paran. The scene is steeped in tension and divine purpose. Bellerophon does not chase or trap the creature. He waits, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs, the bridle heavy in his hands. The air is cool and still, the only sound the gentle trickle of the spring. Then the Pegasus descends, a vision of white against the deep green of the surrounding woods, its wings creating a gentle downdraft that stirs the leaves. It eyes the mortal not with fear, but with a deep, calculating intelligence. It recognizes the bridle for what it is, a key, an invitation, not a chain. In an act of supreme trust, Bellerophon approaches slowly, his movements deliberate and respectful. He does not speak, but his intent is clear. When he offers the bridle, the Pegasus, after a moment of silent communion that seems to stretch for an eternity, lowers its magnificent head and accepts. This moment is not a taming, but a covenant. It is the union of human ambition and divine power, channeled through a mythical beast. With Pegasus as his mount, Bellerophon achieves the impossible, soaring to defeat the monstrous chimera, a fire-breathing horror that terrorized Lycia. Their flight was a symphony of coordinated movement, a dance of death in the clouds, where the hero's spear and the steed's aerial agility became one weapon. This partnership represents the highest aspiration of humanity's relationship with the wild and the divine, not to conquer, but to collaborate, to earn the trust of a force of nature, and for a fleeting moment to share in its glory. However, the myth of Bellerophon also serves as a stark warning about the perils of hubris. Flush with victory over the chimera and other exploits, the hero began to believe his own glory was self-made. He started to see Pegasus not as a partner in a divine covenant, but as a mere vehicle for his own ambition. The climax of this tragic arrogance came when Bellerophon, his heart poisoned by pride, decided he was worthy to take his place among the gods themselves. Mounting his faithful steed, he commanded Pegasus to carry him to the top of Mount Olympus, the sacred home of the gods. The flight was an ascent into folly. As they rose higher than they ever had before, nearing the divine realm, the gods looked down upon this mortal's insolence. Zeus, king of the gods, did not strike them down with a thunderbolt directly. Instead, he sent a tiny, stinging gadfly to bite the flank of the Pegasus. The pain was a sharp, sudden shock. The noble creature, startled and enraged by this unseen irritation, recoiled in midair, bucking violently. Bellerophon, his grip broken by the sudden, agonized convulsion of his mount, was thrown from the great height. He did not fall to a hero's death, but to a bitter, mortal existence, tumbling back to the earth where he landed, crippled and broken, destined to wander the world in misery, a living testament to the cost of overreaching. Pegasus, now free from the burden of mortal pride, continued his ascent, welcomed into the stables of Olympus by Zeus himself. There, he was given the honorable duty of carrying Zeus's thunderbolts, an eternal role in the celestial order. The fall of Bellerophon is a poignant chapter in the Pegasus mythos, a powerful lesson that even the most blessed partnerships can be shattered by human arrogance, and that the creature itself, though it may serve, ultimately belongs to a realm far beyond mortal comprehension or possession. Beyond the epic of Bellerophon, the Pegasus was woven into the fabric of ancient Greek culture as a potent and multi-layered symbol. Its most enduring association was with the Muses, the goddesses of artistic inspiration. It was on Mount Helicon, the home of the Muses, that the strike of Pegasus's hoof was said to have created the Hippocrene spring, whose waters granted poetic inspiration to any who drank from them. This act cemented the creature's role as a bringer of creative elation, a force that could unlock the fountains of art, music, and literature within the human soul. Poets and artists prayed to the Muses for inspiration, but they also invoked the image of the Pegasus, the physical embodiment of that sudden, soaring flight of ideas that lifts the artist above the mundane. Furthermore, Pegasus became a symbol of the soul's immortality and its ascent to the divine. Just as the winged horse rose from the death of Medusa to the heights of Olympus, so too did the ancient Greeks hope their own souls could shed the mortal coil and ascend to a higher plane of existence. In funerary art, the image of Pegasus was sometimes used to represent this triumphant journey beyond death. The constellation Pegasus, fixed in the northern sky, served as an eternal, celestial reminder of this promise. The creature's very nature, straddling earth and sky, made it a perfect metaphor for this transition. It represented the bridging of gaps between the mortal and the immortal, the known and the unknown, the conscious mind and the unconscious wellspring of creativity. It was not a god to be worshipped, but a divine agent, a catalyst for transformation, a living symbol of the highest aspirations that humanity could envision, the flight of the spirit, the birth of beauty from suffering, and the eternal, unreachable dream of freedom. The legend of the Pegasus did not fade with the marble of the Parthenon. Instead, it was adopted, adapted, and reinvented as it galloped through the centuries, finding a new home in the collective imagination of the world. During the Renaissance, artists rediscovered the classical myths, and the Pegasus became a favorite subject, often depicted as the very embodiment of the rebirth of learning and art, a symbol of the human spirit taking flight after the long sleep of the Middle Ages. In the modern era, the creature has been seamlessly integrated into the pantheon of global fantasy. It appears in countless novels, films, and role-playing games, often stripped of its specific Greek context, but retaining its core symbolism of freedom, nobility, and fantastical travel. It is the trusted mount of elves and knights, the rare and beautiful familiar of powerful wizards, the elusive goal of every aspiring adventurer. Its image is used in heraldry and logos, representing everything from speed and power to poetic license and the soaring spirit of innovation. The psychological interpretation has also evolved. Where once it was a divine agent, modern thought might see the Pegasus as a powerful archetype of the human subconscious, representing the untamed power of imagination that can, if respected and harnessed, carry us to incredible heights, but if dominated by ego, can lead to a catastrophic fall. The creature's journey from a specific being in Greek myth to a universal symbol of fantastical escape demonstrates its enduring power. It taps into a fundamental human desire to break free from the constraints of our earthly existence, to touch the sky, to be unburdened by gravity, both physical and spiritual. The Pegasus is no longer just a creature of a lost world. It is a permanent resident of the landscape of dreams. And so, the whisper on the wind remains. The Pegasus, in its enduring legacy, is more than the sum of its myths. It is a mirror held up to humanity's own aspirations and flaws. It represents our yearning for the unattainable, our dream of a partnership with the wild, our capacity for both sublime creation and catastrophic pride. From its violent birth from Medusa's neck to its eternal residence in the starry fields of the night sky, its story is a celestial map of the human condition. It teaches us that inspiration, like the Hippocrene spring, can burst forth from the most unexpected and troubled of sources. It warns us that the gifts of the gods or of nature are granted on a foundation of respect and humility, and that to mistake the mount for the rider is to fall into an abyss of one's own making. The Pegasus does not belong to us. It never did. We may, for a glorious moment, be permitted to grasp its mane and feel the exhilarating rush of the ascent, but its home is always elsewhere, in the clean, high air, in the realm of pure idea, in the untamed wilderness of the imagination. It is a permanent reminder that there are wonders in this world and beyond that cannot be owned, only witnessed, honored, and remembered. And perhaps, on a clear, quiet night, if you find yourself far from the city lights and look up at the constellation that bears its name, you might just feel a faint tremor in the air, the echo of a celestial whinny, a promise that the capacity for wonder, like the Pegasus itself, is forever waiting to take flight. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe, and continue the journey through myths.